redemption a moment ago. Now, this is a woman talking about breaking into the old boys network. I'm not sure that there's anything more old boys than the NBA. Pretty bad. So how did you do it?
So I worked at the National Football League for many years. This was not my first stint in sports, but I will tell you, I was working at Edelman, which is the world's largest PR agency, a couple of years ago, and I was overseeing diversity and inclusion at Edelman, which was very interesting work because it's a very whitewashed company. And I stepped up to the plate for an opportunity that did not exist at the time. I knew it needed to exist because we were really going to dimensionalize our business and be global like we wanted to. We had to start to have bases in the organization that looked like the global clients that we serve. And so I stepped up for an opportunity that did not exist. While I was in that role at Edelman, we got a phone call from some attorneys at Alston and Bird, and they said, we need your crisis help. There's an NBA team that's going through something, and we think it can be really, really bad. This was right around the time of the Donald Sterling and LA Clippers situation. It was probably a month later. And so we were really, really sensitive and recognized that this could go one way or the other. So I became a part of the crisis team on the PR side to help the Atlanta Hawks through this situation that they went through with senior leaders and ownership saying racially derogatory statements about their African-American fan base. While I was giving counsel, I made the suggestion, I said, have you guys ever thought about implementing a chief diversity and inclusion role? And everyone looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. No way, absolutely not, we don't have that here. How can that be applied to our business? And I was so shocked, Star, because I'm saying to myself, we're here in the middle of a crisis because there has been a lack of activity in this space, and you don't understand why this is necessary. So after several weeks of doing this work, they decided that this was serious enough that it needed to be overseen over the long haul from an individual who would be very strategic and intentional in her efforts to do diversity work.
And inside the organization, because a lot of people, they talk diversity and inclusion from outside the organization, but real change comes from inside the organization.
100%, and real change also comes from the top. So real change cannot be handed to a diversity officer to make the changes. The diversity officer is a facilitator of change, but I think that real change comes when the CEO and senior level managers are pushing the agenda, giving financial resources to this person to make this a reality. It has to start from the top.
See, I lecture all over the country, and I'm in most of the media that I've done in Atlanta. This week has been around diversity and inclusion. As a matter of fact, I did NPR this morning to talk specifically about what diverse people bring to the table. One of the things that I loved about last night and seeing Azuzo, I never say her name correctly, and Regina and Viola win the Emmy last night is, oh my gosh, I was so proud of them, but they are in front of the camera. As I watched the Emmys last night, I looked on the stage, and as the producers took the stage, and the directors took the stage, and the writers took the stage, I didn't see a whole lot of diversity there. So having diversity around the table in all aspects is really important because obviously at the Atlanta Hawks, NBA in general, they don't have a problem with hiring black people to bounce balls.
Absolutely, and exactly. What you're saying is absolutely correct. So our player population is about 70% African American, and then when you look at senior leaders who are either in an ownership position, running the team from a revenue perspective, making decisions that impact our business, that's about 80% Caucasian. And so there certainly is a disconnect between what you see on the field and what you see happening in the boardroom. And we have to be able to bridge the gap and reflect from a decision-making perspective in addition to people who run the company. We have to be able to reflect what we see on the court.
It's interesting because my office did a little research for me, and although, as you say, the majority of players in the NBA are African American, you're the first chief diversity and inclusion officer among the league's 30 teams. That does not seem right to me.
It doesn't, but it's true. The good thing is that since I started this role about 2 months ago, the National Basketball Association hired their first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer.
Magnificent.
And so I think that between the work that he and I will be doing, other teams will begin to pick this role up, because it is critical for, again, dimensionalizing your business, getting involved in activities beyond what you see on the court. I think diversity is critical to many organizations, not just in the NBA, but it's critical in business, because the world, there are 7.3 billion people in this world, and all 7.3 billion are different in some way. So we have to be able to speak to those differences and figure out how to enhance someone's, the qualities that they bring to the table that make them unique. And then if we're taking the best of everybody and putting all of that together, imagine how great our organizations can be. But homogenous organizations won't thrive.
You know, I actually have talked about redefining diversity also. You know, Professional Diversity Network, one of the things that we do is we talk about diversity in terms of course, the races, minorities, African Americans, Latinas, and Asians. But diversity also includes the LGBT community. It includes the disabled or differently abled. It includes veterans. And this is the largest group of diverse people, which is women. And so what we have read and what we have studied and what all the studies say is when you add diversity to an organization, you increase profitability, you increase